And now, Dubi Paz will share some words of insight with us.
Words of wisdom.
What's the difference between wisdom and insight?
Experience.
We practiced this, we rehearsed it. Yeah.
You know that lyric for Kol ha'olam kulo, Gesher tzar meod? You know that one? It kind of reflects into this. So maybe after I talk, we can sing that song. Anyhow. So the story here is the story of Noah. And my grandson is Noah, so that's nice. And I try to find, as usual, an interpretation that's more psychological based, philosophical. And I also went to Kabbalah and to my friend GPT-3, I think, or 4. And I tried AI, which didn't quite work. That's too strong, okay. And I tried AI. Funny story, I said, okay, this is the story, write it to me like I'm talking in a church. It started with, hallelujah, brothers and sisters. And it ends with, bless the God or something. And then I did, okay, now it's a synagogue. Shalom. We are here to gather. So interesting how ChatGPT is kind of wise. So the story of Noah is kind of a significant story. It's one of the main stories right after the creation. And it's about the story of shelter, like you mentioned, the Teva, the ark. It's about rebirth, and it's about hope. At the face of it, it's a horrible story. I mean, humanity basically dies. It gets murdered, killed, or however you want to say. But the concept that's behind it is a concept of balance and I would say resilience. And the lesson to be learned from it is how to become resilient. I think this is especially pertinent with what happened on October 7th, where it's a new chapter in the Jewish history. And it's also a story of chaos and rebirth. And that comes back as a motif throughout Jewish history. So I don't have that much time. I know we are writing early, but I don't want to occupy the extra time. But so I'm just going to touch about some concepts and symbolism in the story after reading a little bit of Kabbalah, my own knowledge from psychology and philosophy and so forth. So the symbolism in the story of Noah. So first of all, is the placement of the story. The placement of the story is right. It's not accident. It's right after Bereshit, right? The creation of the world. Then we get kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and then we're basically getting annihilated with the flood. The significance of the flood itself is, as a motif in psychoanalysis, is that humanity was basically wiped out in the story using water and not fire. He could have just as easily created a big fire and killed everybody. But water has a symbol of life and rebirth. The story of Noah himself. So Noah is described as tzaddik tamim, which is righteous and perfect. And Noah is reflecting the idea of the self as a reflection of God. So as we are made in God's image, Noah is a reflection of God. And that title of righteous and tamim, the tamim and tzaddik, was given to Abraham, Moses, and David. It's not used very often in the Torah. The ark itself serves as a metaphor of preparation, shelter, and protection, resilience, and hope. It's not a physical shelter, but also a spiritual one, a place where faith can thrive. The concept of a home or a place of worship and safe haven, just like this place, is symbolized by the ark. And it's also a mental structure that holds our experiences and emotions. And it fosters the growth. Having that structure and base fosters our ability to withstand adversity and grow. The symbols of Noah's sons. So Noah's sons, there's a part, there were the Shem, Yefet, and Ham. Also symbolize insight. If you look at it, the way I do it is to the three parts of the human psyche. The wives in the story, often neglected in the Bible. Everybody had a wife, right? But they're really not mentioned. But there always is mentioned. It also presents the duality of the universe. The animals in the story are brought in pairs, female and male. The three sons are brought in with their wives. Noah has a wife. By the way, anybody knows her name? That's right. Naamah is the name. Interesting. It symbolizes the philosophical idea of duality and opposition in the world, that evil does not exist without good, beauty without ugliness, and the last thing, so those are the main symbols. And I would say the last one would be the departure. It follows the departure from the Garden of Eden. So the departure from Garden of Eden and into a life of freedom and suffering with self-awareness is another prelude to this story of saying, I'm not protecting you anymore. You have to handle your life. And we go through that struggle. So there's a lot of symbolism in that story as far as that goes. So I'm going to touch about the three sons of Moses and Noah, sorry. Same. And the story, there's a story there that's interesting is that Noah gets drunk and he undresses and is naked in his drunkenness. And in the Parashot and the Pirushim, they're talking about how the three sons were handling the fact that their father was naked, or let's say vulnerable. And the three sons, their approach was different. Ham was different than his two brothers. The brothers, Shem and Yefet, approached their father walking backward and giving him the clothing so can he dress himself. They were not facing him. They were not facing his face, right? It's another motif in the Bible that we don't face God's face. We cannot look at his face. Where Shem actually kind of was facing him and went to tell his brothers and was making kind of fun of Noah's vulnerability. So that's a significant event, and by that, the Kabbalah gave the three different descriptions to the three sons. So Shem represents the neshama, the higher soul associated with spiritual enlightenment, moral development, and connection to the divine. He represents the superego and our moral compass and wisdom and higher ideals, reflecting on fears, needs, desires, and the need to bring harmony into our life. If you remember Freud, everybody I think read Freud. So the superego is you would call it the judge. Now, Ham symbolizes the nefesh, or the animal of the soul, representing our instinctual drives and our struggle with our base instincts. Ham, akin to the id in Freud's theory, embodies our primal instincts and our emotions and feelings such as anger, hate, pain, and pleasure. So That's Ham. And Yefet corresponds to Ruach. So we had Neshama, Nefesh, and now we're talking about Ruach. And Ruach is the spirit that signifies the quest for knowledge, creativity, and personal growth. He represents in the Freud's theory or the psychoanalytic theory the ego and the navigator. And he represents the balance between our higher aspiration and our primitive drive. And the ego is the negotiator between our inner needs and wants, or the chaos within us, the Yetzer Hara, and life around us. So the ego is what negotiates us in life. It's the thing we see, the personas that we all see is the ego. I touched upon that, and I think I want to add to those three characters also the idea, again, of dichotomy and duality that is presented in these stories. And Kabbalah, the tree of life, according to Kabbalah, is the two sides of God, where there is the feminine and the masculine opposition that creates one, unity and wholeness. And in the creating of this safe place, whether it's physical or psychological, is built on this duality and tension between and complementary energies of the feminine and the female, the two sides of God. So in conclusion, this story of guided path of building our own ark and resilience, physical and mental, and keeping hope and rebirth. The story of Noah is a story of humanity, and it is the story of the Jewish people. It teaches us to find balance between order and chaos. As Jews, we are commanded to revisit our story every year and to keep it alive within us. Thank you for sharing this meaningful time with me today, and Shabbat Shalom. And hallelujah.